Speaking with me.
Yeah, I did the audio thing. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to World's Worst.
Oh,
No,
no.
Lauren.
Is it bad that I believed you for like half a second? I was like, oh,
That is
okay.
not bad.
I'm like, wait, what? Kyle's here.
Oh, Kyle's here. That's it.
Yes.
Well, hello, everybody. This is actually Fire Talk. My name is Anna Laughlin.
I'm Kyle Holly.
And I am Tori Baird.
And we're going to have a good show.
Yeah.
We're going to have a good show today.
It's going to be a good one.
It's gonna be a good one. You guys want to go live now?
Let's go live.
Let's go live.
Let's go live.
Go live on 93.7 FM.
I guess I should have a microphone somewhere in the vicinity.
WSCU, your fire station.
I mean, what the hey?
What the hey?
Why is there dirt in here?
I know, it's pretty dirty. I wish you guys could see this.
It's like actual, like, dirt on the ground.
There's like,
Don't understand.
oh, it's dirty in here, meaning it's unorganized, but there's like actual dirt.
Physical dirt.
You could grow plants in here.
Maybe that's what they're doing.
It's all a big radio experiment.
Starting a greenhouse.
All right. Oh, just so, I guess the internet, as well as you guys know, I might have to get a call from Bright House because they're coming to set up internet in Tara's apartment.
Nice.
But I have the phone number. I gave them my phone number, so I might have to leave, and I'm sorry. But I will come right back after the phone call. All right. Let's do this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fire Talk on 93.7 FM.
Hello.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's great to be here, Kyle.
Cool. It is good to be here. Well, like he said, my name's Kyle.
I'm Tori,
And I'm Sean.
and we are Fire Talk. We're
Yeah,
missing
we are.
Anna, though. Poor Anna.
Poor Anna. Poor Anna. Is she working right now?
She is working right now.
That is unfortunate.
She's at my favorite restaurant working.
Oh, yeah? What's your favorite
What's your
restaurant?
Sean?
Well, it's funny you guys ask. Right here in the one and only 863 Toscana Ristorante,
That sounds fancy.
located on sunny Southeastern University's campus, home to familiar favorites and cafeteria classics, as well as new twists on the comfort food you grew up with. Toscana Ristorante, 1000 Longfellow Boulevard, Lakeland, Florida.
You should do PR for them.
Oh, I'm already getting started.
I kind of want to eat there now.
I know.
I don't think I've ever felt that way before.
You're
What
welcome.
is this feeling?
Sometimes I have to tell that to myself. Here we go. Time to go to your favorite restaurant, Sean.
The
Just
NAIA.
Embraces the 5 core character values of the Champions of Character Initiative.
Oh, boy. All right, well, we'll just stop you there before you do it all.
Don't get me started, man.
Well, hey, we got a good show today. I say that every day. Yeah, I say that every time we have a show.
Yeah.
It's a good show, but
It's never not a good show.
it's never not a good show.
It's a good show.
If you want to watch us, you can actually go to YouTube and search Fire Talk Season 1. Right now, we're actually on Episode 6. This is our 6th
What?
episode.
Whoa.
Right? I know. So you can watch all of our past episodes as well, our other 5, and watch us live right now, because we're nifty-looking people, I would say. You know?
Yeah.
Not too.
Not too shabby.
We're
Not too
all right.
shabby.
That's kind of the point of the
Mid-semester
radio.
slump could be worse.
I mean, you don't have to look at me while I talk. So it's a good.
A reprieve from us.
Yeah. Gotta take a break. Don't want to overdose.
There you go.
We're off to
There
a
you
weird
go.
start.
I know.
I don't like how we started.
I guess we'll just jump right into it. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about a kind of a few different things. This is kind of a broad topic that we'll be able to narrow some things down in. But we're going to be talking about kind of gender roles, masculinity, femininity, in specifically the Christian circle. So like I said, that's kind of a broad topic, but I feel like we'll, by the end of the conversation, we'll have narrowed down to a few other things. So I guess let's just start this real quick with this question. Masculinity, femininity in the church. What are your thoughts? Or what comes to mind? Is there stereotypes that come to mind? Or are you like, what the heck are we about to talk about?
I think that, this is one of those things where a lot of things, let me start that over. Like a lot of things, this is one of those things in the church where I think we've really come a long way. We've seen ourselves in a time when this was a very important issue. In many ways, it still is important, but we were putting too much emphasis on it in the past, I feel. And now we're coming into the place where it's just less of an issue. I'll come into a church, and if there's a woman pastor, I'll notice. I'm not going to say, oh, another day at the office, there's nothing different here. Because more often than not, your pastor's not a woman. But I'm not going to sit there the whole service thinking, what a heretic, what a heretic. After the first few seconds, I'm not going to be thinking, oh, it's a woman pastor. I'm going to start thinking about whatever else is going on in the sermon. And I think that that's true in a lot of ways. You know, we are no longer concerned. Fewer people are concerned with leadership in the church as it regards to gender. And I think there's a trickle-down effect from there. Like, if you're cool with your top leadership being a man or a woman or what have you, pretty much anything else from there goes after that. And I think that's largely a very healthy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that there's definitely stereotypes that come to mind, just because there's always going to be, you know, not always, but, you know, there's those stereotypes in life. And I think it depends on, like, where you grew up in, because there's some places where you go and you're like, oh, equality in the church is, like you said, it's like, oh, it's just kind of a thing. And then you go to other churches and they're like,
it's non-existent.
It's not a thing
No.
at all. And so it's just kind of like a time warp. Like, it's a little odd.
Going back in time. I guess for me, I've never really run into it on a personal level. Obviously, I mean, one, just being a man in Christianity, but the church I grew up in, I feel like we've always had women in leadership in there. I mean, we've never had a lead pastor that was a woman. But yeah, so I mean, for me, like I was saying, nothing really big comes to mind, personal experience, just from other things I've heard. But yeah, like you guys were saying, I mean, do you think that there is maybe a problem in other churches? Sean, you were saying that even if there's a woman pastor, it's not something that's like you're gonna necessarily sit there and, oh, that's a heretic. But do you think there are still people out there that might sit there and Tori's eyes are getting big right now, I feel like.
That's a
That's
big
just genetic. It's fine.
It has nothing to do with the topic. Nah.
That's just Tori.
But yeah, I mean, do you think that for both of you, do you think there's people out there that are right now saying, I can't believe they would let a woman be a lead pastor?
Absolutely. I mean, the church that I grew up in, back home, it's still not a thing for them.
Really?
Oh, there's never been, like, females in leadership, and it was very much like, you know, those two verses in the Bible were like, that was a huge thing for them. And, like, the lead pastor's wife grew up very, very Southern Baptist, I believe. I don't want to get her denomination wrong, but I believe that's what the denomination was. And, like, that was just a, like, non-starter for her.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of trickled down. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I'll go and visit the church if I'm, like, with my parents, but I'm like, this just feels weird because it's
it feels outdated almost.
Well, yeah, because it's not like, oh, there's just no one in leadership. Because I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to not go to a church just because there's only guys in leadership. But if that's just like, oh, that's the people they've hired. But because they're like, no, adamantly, like, we will not let them be in leadership unless it's like a women's ministry or they're baking or something, something like that.
Yeah.
And so definitely I've seen that in my church a lot. So it's still there in places.
I think it's certainly a thing that continues to be a problem for Christianity and churches as a whole. And you can't really go church by church. I think you have to go person by person. Because if you have 199 people in a church that are fine with women in leadership and one that is not, then, all of a sudden it's a problem in that church. Mm-hmm. So I think in every church, you're going to find those people that feel that way, either from a biblical standpoint or maybe they just feel that way because of past experience or what have you. Regardless, I think it's an issue. And as for the church that I grew up in, we never had a head woman pastor, but that's because over the span of the last, 80 years that the church has been there, it's been 2 pastors.
Oh,
lead pastor right now is 87. And nobody wants him to go anywhere, so it never really crossed our mind, like, should we replace him with a woman? Because we didn't want to replace him with anything.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we never had women in the head pastor position, we certainly had women in leadership. And my church tends to be along the more conservative side in a lot of different things. But certainly, you will have those women in those places. I talked about this a few episodes ago. You never call people Mrs. or Miss that. It's aunt. It's aunt this person or aunt that person. Like, if Aunt Diana or Aunt Lisa at my church, there's aunts everywhere. If they ask you to do something, like, you would run through a wall for them. You're not concerned that they're a woman, You're not concerned that they don't preach. But all that to say, I think it is a person-by-person thing, and it continues to be an issue.
I don't think I've ever heard the expression "run through a wall" for
I
them.
like it though.
You've
do
never
like
heard
that.
that one?
No, I've heard like walk through fire or something, but never
That's
like run through a wall.
dedication.
Oh, I like that saying. I do.
It depends, like if it's cinder blocks or like
Yeah, I was
yeah,
gonna say, is it
drywall.
like drywall
Oh, no.
or like
No.
plywood?
Plywood. Man, I'd run through balsa wood for you, bro. I'd
At least a cardboard box.
run through wainscoting. I would do that for you
with wet paint.
with wet paint.
So you know, obviously, I would say in the younger generation, our generation, that's much more. I don't necessarily want to say like liberal with this because I think people might get the wrong idea what I mean by that. But you know, obviously, women are doing a lot of things that they used to not do.
Absolutely.
I mean, I guess probably being on the radio, Tori, this is probably something that when it first started, you
Changing
wouldn't be.
history.
I know, it's crazy.
There you go.
93.7 FM.
Burning down barriers.
Go to YouTube and search Fire Talk Season 1. There you go.
You're running through walls.
Running through
That's what I do.
walls. But, you know, there's been a lot of changes, but there's still, you know, that old mindset in some churches where, you know, women can't be in leadership. What do you guys think that we should do as the younger generation to change that? Should we just stand by and, oh, you know, they're going to die off eventually, so we just wait? Or is it something that we should actively be trying to change?
I think change really begins within a person. So first you have to look to yourself and make sure that you are fully convinced of whatever your position is, one way or the other. And then, you know, assuming we're all under the idea that women should be in leadership if God so chooses them to be, I think at that point you need to look at yourself and the way that you interact with your leadership and with the women in your church and the way that you treat women that are not leaders. Like, you know, I have 2 younger sisters, and I love them both dearly. I have no idea what they're going to do with themselves, but if one of them came to me one day and said, "Sean, I really want to be a pastor," you know, how do I deal with that? Do I say no? Do I just blatantly say, "No, you're a woman, you can't"? Or do we do, you know, this thing where we make ourselves feel better by being subtle? Well, you know, maybe you should do maybe this, maybe this, maybe this.
Mm-hmm.
And we almost subconsciously, without realizing it, put these ideas down because we're so used to this concept that women aren't capable of this. So I think the best thing that you can do is really be introspective on this issue and make sure that you're not doing anything counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, on top, like, the next step after introspection would be dialogue and having conversations about it. Because I know for me, a lot of people that I've kind of pushed back, like, respectively, like, talk to in my church, like, if I have that relationship with them, just kind of, like, push back a little bit, like, okay, well, can you explain to me why you think this way? And can you, you know, show me scriptures why you think this way? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they'll like go there for their first line of defense, and then I'll have researched it, so I'll be like, well, actually, and then after that they just don't have anything, and they're like, well, honestly, I haven't, and they're like, you know, guys.
At that point, they're like, women can't do it because they're witches.
Right? They're like, just like they change their argument. But they're older guys in the church, and they're like, oh, well, I've just never really researched it that much,
Mm-hmm.
and it just kind of. I remember someone said that to me one time, and it struck me. I was like, it's not being researched by this generation because it's all for people who believe that it's all males in the church who would be doing the research,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't affect them the way that it does the females.
Yeah.
So they're not researching it, so it's not being dialogued about.
That's really interesting, actually.
It was shocking to me because this was like a very theological, very like spiritual minded guy, and they just after I had that first like. Well, context and things that were happening, basic theology, and then they just didn't have anything after that.
So, I mean, I don't want to get too off topic with this kind of question to add on to that, but do you think that not researching things, I would almost venture to say that's kind of the root of a lot of issues in Christianity? I mean, would you guys agree, disagree? Is there a middle ground to that? I would say that people just pulling things out of their butt, so to speak, is the problem. There's a lot of problems in Christianity.
I think that has a lot to do with it. My dad always talks about, you always want to be a self-fed Christian. You don't want to be, like, going to church is great, and being under leaderships and being mentored is great. But at the end of the day, your relationship is between you and God. Mm-hmm. And there's other people around you, and God, obviously, like the church, He designed that, and that's important. But it's a part of your relationship with God. It's not your relationship with God. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, like, being fed, like, from your pastor or something is great, but if you're not going through the scriptures on your own and researching things on your own, then it's hard to have a healthy perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that, Kyle. I think we have to walk a fine line, because you can't beat yourself up for not knowing everything, but at the same time we need to make a very conscious and consistent effort to learn about as much as we can. And every day there are going to be new issues that arise in the church. 200 years ago, no one was hung up with women being pastors. We just, everybody just kind of figured, well, there it is, it's not a thing, it's okay. 100 years ago, people were not hung up on homosexuality in the church and what that looks like, and now it's really come to the forefront. So we can't anticipate every problem that comes about, and at the same time, we can't just be ready to jump on whatever big bandwagon is happening in the church so we can be relevant, quote unquote. But I think we need to really keep our ear to the ground in terms of issues that are facing the church and approaching the church. And I don't mean issues like problems, like things that we disagree about are somehow problems, but issues as in things that are happening that deserve our attention. And that gives us the ability to try to educate ourselves about those and learn more, so when those situations arise, we're more prepared to deal with them. And we don't have to do things like, oh, I don't know. And there's probably going to be a lot of times in my life where I have to say I don't know. And it's okay to say I don't know, but I think I don't care really is the bigger problem than I don't know. I really hope, Tori, the people that you talked to went on to research it and realize, women leaders in the Bible, Deborah was a judge,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And maybe their opinion changed, or at the very least, I learned more about it.
Yeah.
So to use the church fancy words, we're going to transition here.
Ooh,
You like that?
transition.
You like that? So we're going to transition a little bit. I want to start talking about more gender roles, and obviously as it relates to Sean and myself, kind of masculinity, and then if femininity comes up, let's definitely talk about it. But I have a lot of things for this, and it's specifically when it comes to kind of maybe being in relationships or whatever, how men should act. I think the old school way of thinking is men need to be these kind of burly men and be the leaders of their family, be the bacon winners, or I guess in Tori, in my case, the tofu winners or something.
Lettuce.
The plant
The lettuce
protein byproduct.
Pablo is the lettuce winner.
Yes.
There you go. So for you guys, and again, Sean, it's more asking if you felt this, and Tori, if you, I guess, feel this for other men, or if you've seen this at all, because you have brothers, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you guys think about the stereotype of, kind of what I was just talking about as far as men go and masculinity and Christianity?
Yeah, I feel that there is. I feel like there is this. I don't want to call it a myth, but we do have this idea of the Christian man and what that looks like. And I think in a lot of ways, there's a lot of truth to that. There is something that every Christian man should have and should hold to. And really, the concept of a Christian man is kind of a spectrum. And on one end, you have the, Billy Graham. I'm the leader of my family. I'm a pastor. I'm leading. Leadership seems to be a very big thing, and for good reason. There should be very strong leadership qualities displayed in Christian men. But we seem to have created this alternate version of the male. Here's your male, and here's your Christian male, who is all of these things. And if you don't check off a box, you're no longer a Christian. You're not the Christian male.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side of that, there's people where we're almost afraid to talk about gender. We say, no, there's no difference between men and women whatsoever. Not in the concept of Christianity, not at all. It doesn't matter. Don't talk about it. Christian man is just whatever you happen to want that to be. And I don't think either of those things are true. I do believe leadership is a big part of being a man and being a Christian, but I believe that's true for women as well. One of the best leaders I ever knew was my mother. And she led differently from my dad, but both of them were incredible Christian adults trying to lead us as their kids. But yeah, to kind of get back to that, I think there are certain things that are expected of you as a Christian male, and I feel that some of them are very legitimate, and some of them maybe not so much.
Mm-hmm. Tori, how do you feel? Again, you have some brothers, and also, as a woman, what's your perspective on male masculinity?
Male masculinity. I think
It's a very manly episode.
It's a very manly episode. I actually just did a presentation on this in my ethics class.
There we go.
I actually tried to have somebody do this on a radio show early this morning, and they didn't. So this is great. I did a presentation on gender roles, and specifically in the church, and we kind of came to the conclusion of a mutual servanthood, and just kind of that, like you said, leadership is important, and respect is important, and it should be like a mutual partnership. And I think that there are definitely like both people, like guys and girls, are made in God's image. And there's different like parts of God's image, I believe, that are in guys and in girls. But to put that into a box, to a stereotype, to be like, well, to be like that, you have to be a strong, forward-thinking, forward-speaking guy. And if you're soft-spoken, well, then you're not exhibiting those qualities because you don't like to speak up in public, or you are more of a quiet leadership or something like that. That's where it gets a little sticky.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's unique individual people who are going to exhibit those qualities in different ways.
Yeah, I know for me, growing up, I feel like I never ticked any of those boxes that kind of Sean was talking about earlier. I was raised by a single mom, a grandmother, and I lived in the house with my aunt, and the only other guy was my grandpa, who had 3 women up until I was born. So, and then female cat.
Wow.
You know, so yeah, it was crazy. But I felt like I never ticked those off. I always had more of a feminine side to me, and I think that was good for me because I didn't grow up in that kind of I'm gonna be the head no matter what, Because in all honesty, something I really believe in with my fiance is I don't ever want to be unequally yoked. To use more Bible lingo,
That's like the pinnacle of Christianese right there.
There you go, talking about the yoke. But in all seriousness, so I don't run our relationship where I'm going to make all the decisions, and if she makes more money than me, then she needs to quit her job or something. Right now, she is making more money than me because I'm still in college, and I'm totally fine with that. And I always, whether it's something that she's doing or I'm doing, always want to make sure it's we talk about whatever it is, and because I think that's fair. I can't imagine being a woman that would be stuck in kind of an old-timey relationship like that and have to just listen to whatever her husband said. I would hate that.
I'd be really bad at that. I'd be in timeout a lot, or whatever happens. Like, that wouldn't be good.
The Scarlet Tea.
Yeah.
But yeah. Also, I painted my nails at some points, had long hair, so I really didn't. Unless we're talking like Samson, the long hair.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Quick side note. My father and I used to get in arguments about this when I was growing up. I don't see anything not masculine with long hair. There's been some very manly men with long hair. That's all I gotta say.
Jesus and every American depiction of him.
Correct.
Come on.
All right.
That's what I always said. I would be in high school and people would be like, you need to cut your hair at church. And I'd be like, you see that little picture of Jesus that's on the wall? That's totally historically accurate.
You see that? Yeah, Jesus did look like Russell Brand. So read the Bible. Educate yourself. If I want to look like Yamir Yager, I can still be a pastor. I don't care. That's fine.
I'm just picturing Russell Brand Jesus. I mean, he had the whole tour of the Messiah Complex comedy tour. So.
Yeah.
Oh my. I feel like I have like nowhere else to go with that next. So let's talk femininity now.
Sorry, didn't mean to throw off the show.
No, it's okay. Anytime.
No,
I love Russell Brand. I think he's a very interesting guy to listen to, and especially
he's hilarious in interviews.
Right, he's hilarious, and he's also he's a comedian that I think people misunderstand him sometimes. Almost like Sean was kind of talking about this before we went on air today about everything he says. People just laugh at, even if it's not funny. And I feel like that's Russell Brand, where he comes up with a lot of very interesting concepts. A lot of political stuff, and people just kind of write him off because he's a comedian.
I think it's a joke.
So kind of getting back on topic, we've talked about the male masculinity in Christianity, feeling that need sometimes to be, I'm the head of the household.
Yeah.
And obviously it seems like you and I kind of don't necessarily check all those boxes necessarily. Yeah. But now let's talk about femininity. We were talking about a little bit earlier about women not being able to be in leadership in the church. So, Tori, we'll start with you on this one. What have your experiences been personally as far as femininity and Christianity go?
I think it's been interesting for me because I grew up with older brother. Like, I grew up around a lot of guys, like all guy cousins, super close with them. They live close to me, like rough and tumble. And like Sean was mentioning earlier that my dad's like a very strong like male role model. and so is my brother. And in a way, like, I could see how sometimes that could have been, like, an overpowering thing, but it must have just been my personality, because that just made me, like, push back and dialogue more. Like, oh, yeah, you're really strong, like, and then how come this and how come that? And growing up doing martial arts alongside my dad and my brother, and for, like, 11 years, things like that, where I think that there was always that stereotype of femininity in the church. The, sweet smiling,
You have to wear a dress on Easter.
right,
Oh, yeah.
all of that stuff, which, hey,
Shawnee said, "Oh yeah, like that happened to you."
Well, my parents had some very liberal views. They
Okay.
said, you have to wear a dress on Easter. Everyone. There's no cop-outs with God.
There you go.
everyone wears a dress. And, like, personally, I am more feminine in the stereotypical way of, like, I love dressing up. I love, doing those stereotypes, I guess.
Mhm.
What's in that? She has a Starbucks cup. What's in that right now?
I'd rather not say.
Oh,
That's what I
my.
thought.
Yeah.
No, it's not a pumpkin spice. It's I skipped holidays. It's a peppermint mocha.
Oh my.
So I don't know if that's worse.
It is. Sorry, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I never really fit into the stereotypes of the church for femininity, so I never really felt affected by them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would feel affected by them in the sense of people would say things, or like, oh, you're a rather outspoken child, aren't you? I was like, well, yes, I am actually, and I'd love to talk with you more about that. I was adorable.
So Sean, have you? Because you have sisters, like
I
you
do.
were saying.
I have two sisters.
Have you ever seen them struggle with any, femininity in the church at all?
We had, we came from a great church background, and honestly, I never sat down and talked with them and said, do you feel comfortable in this context in terms of being a female in Christianity? And like you said, we have to be aware of the things that we don't know, and this show has made me aware of that. I don't know what their experience was like in that context. Now, partly because they're 16 and 13, but that's not to say that, issues can't arise, even at that age group. It starts young and it moves forward. My experience with femininity in the church was, if I'm saying that right, I always feel like I'm saying that word wrong.
Which one, femininity or church?
Church, it's a tough one. It's just, I was always surrounded by very strong women leaders, and it really was a very traditional sort of a background. They were, a lot of them, stay-at-home moms, the homemaker kind of a role. But I was certainly raised to never lose respect for them, and to treat them just like I would, any adult male in the church. And later on down the road, my mom was a stay-at-home mom for a very long time, and it was a very positive thing for her and for the rest of my family. But it came to the point where she got a job and wanted to re-enter the workforce, and that was it. It was great, and we were very happy for her. It turned out to be a very positive change. She likes what she does, and it hasn't been weird for us at all. And I think a lot of that was because growing up in an environment within the church where it wasn't like, women need to do this, 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 and this. If that was there, I certainly didn't see it. It certainly didn't affect my mom because of where she is now. So I guess all that to say, it's not something I really observed. I think my church was more the exception than the rule. But that's not to say it didn't take place, and that's not to say it's not out there. I'm just not very qualified to speak on it. I can say there were a lot of very excellent and very influential women leaders in my life that showed me that being a woman does not make you any less than being male in terms of a lot of different things, in terms of being a leader, in terms of the roles, in terms of your potential.
Oh yeah, I think there was some some women in my church that taught me more than some of the guys, whether it would be in leadership or not, ever could,
Yeah.
And that really comes for me from, like I said, growing up the way I did with a strong female influence in my life. A lot of the times I just relate to women better. It took me a while to actually be able to like hold a conversation with a guy, which sounds weird. But now, although I think my fiance wishes I would just stop talking sometimes. I just keep going. So we've we've kind of covered masculinity, kind of covered femininity, talked about women in leadership. What are we missing? It seems like this is a big issue, and there's reasons for that. What do you guys think we're missing here? What is there more to dive in deep to?
I think we don't realize how, because I know we've talked a lot about like the stereotypes in the church, and I think we might be missing where those stem from, and they come from like stereotypes when children are young, because children grow up to be the leaders of the church, and like it can be very detrimental because little boys will grow up and like if they're playing on the playground in preschool, it's like you fall down, you scrape your knee, and it's like, okay, well, you're fine, you're not dying, get up, run, go. You know, a little girl falls and like scrapes her knee, and it's like, you okay? Do you need anything?
It's okay, sweetie.
Do you need some ice? Do you want a teddy bear? Like, you know, it's just it's handled differently.
Mm-hmm.
Where girls are taught more to be more like, here, go be more nurturing, go play this, go play, and the guys are more rough and tumble. And there's a lot of research that shows that as they grow older, obviously there's exceptions, and this is general. Speaking generalizations is not ever good, but it can lead to guys feeling more like they don't express emotion as much.
Yeah.
And girls feeling like they cannot be as assertive in certain situations.
Yeah.
Or if they are assertive, that they will be not be like, oh, look at that person who's taking charge of that situation. It's like, oh my gosh, what is her problem? Like, who woke up on the wrong side of the bed, honey? Like, you know, and they're considered not nice.
So are these problems? Because it almost sounds like these are more outside of the Christian circle. Are these rooted? Are the problems that we face in Christianity, where men have to be one way, women have to be one way? Are those problems in Christianity stemming from parts of culture, or are they kind of their own separate entity?
In my opinion, I believe that they do stem from culture, and you know, the beauty of, I guess, being in the church versus being anywhere else is, you know, I don't want to say we have an antidote to that, but we should be doing a better job of combating these things. And I think the big issue, the overarching issue here, is value. We look at masculinity and femininity, and we're either scared of it. We say, no, everybody's the same. Don't worry about it. Don't talk about it. It's fine. And then on the flip side of that, we say it's this huge defining thing, and that'll get you places like, you know, women can't be pastors and men are superior, and this whole mindset. And I think, you know, God didn't make us male and female to put one to be better than the other. I think it's a value issue, and we have to understand that God values each of us the same way. And even though we are wired to do some things differently, there's a lot of things that we aren't wired to do differently that we have just decided to do differently, and that is a value thing. And it comes when we understand that everyone is equal in God's eyes. You know, God did not make males and females by accident. This isn't an inconvenience to Him. And I think that's the advantage within the church, is we can look and we can say, you know, how can we solve this problem? How can we, you know, move out of that place, like you were saying, Tori, where we have to treat everyone so incredibly different that we grow up on completely different ends of a spectrum. Mm-hmm. And I think the answer to that really is value and how you treat people from day one.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, I'm just gonna agree with that. Sorry, I really have nothing to add to that. You know, I mean, you know, I think you know a lot of our problems are coming from culture, and I think it's up to us as this new generation, or not new generation, but as kind of the current generation, to really take charge and fix the things that need to be fixed. You know, as we talked earlier about women in church leadership, you know, amongst the three of us, we find no problem with it because. You know, because the culture we're in, you know, there is no problem with that. And we've kind of realized the value of women and what they can teach us, you know, more than a man could. Or saying more as, you know, whatever it is. Is there ever a part, and this doesn't necessarily have to play into gender at all, but is there ever a point where we don't want to let culture dictate what we're doing in the church? Fortunately, women in leadership is a great change in the church, and that's something that I don't foresee ever going away. And you know, like it shouldn't. You know, women should be in leadership in the church. So that was a good change. But do you think that there, you know, there might be things in culture that we shouldn't necessarily bring into the church?
I think you have to always be wise and be discerning. So I don't know if we could say that comfortably that anything in society that we should just, as the church, jump on with. Like obviously, like look at it like, oh, you know, women's rights, this and that. Hey, yeah, why aren't we doing? Oh yeah, you know, praying, discerning, and then adding that into the church. But I think you have to be careful not to just be like, hey, this is culturally relevant right now. So as the church, we have to incorporate that into our church just so we stay culturally relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Like as long as you think of the heart and the motive behind why the church is incorporating it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think a big part of it, it's a morality thing. You know, I think we have to, like you said, Tori, be discerning and understand what is essential and what is not. And I really, and this is probably just the church throughout history. I don't know that much about other time periods besides ours and that of the Bible, because that's what I'm most familiar with. But we see Paul talk about this sometimes, where it seems like the church is fighting about stuff that we look at and we're like, that's not a big deal. Like, really, that's not an issue. Like, some people were just disgusted by the thought of eating meat that was sacrificed to an idol and then sold in the marketplace from the temple. Like, we can't eat this, it's contaminated. And Paul, and to a lot of these sorts of issues, Paul pretty much came out and said, listen, if it's not impeding you from growing in Christ and it's not impeding anybody else, do your thing. Like, if that makes you uncomfortable that it was in a Baal temple, don't eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're with somebody that bothers them, don't eat it. And if you're cool with it, fine, buy it. I don't care. And I think we need to look at our culture now, and we need to distinguish issues one from another and say, this is on the same level as a temple meet. Like, if I went back to my home church and we got rid of hymns and we had a skinny jean worship team and a projector, honestly, that would be weird for me. I'd say, well, this is odd, but it's fine. If this is the way that we're going to worship now, this is the way we're going to worship. This is not a big deal. You know, if I came back to my church and they said, you know, we believe that lying is okay. Like, we're comfortable with that. Culture dictates that that's convenient, so we now feel that that's an all right thing to do. Well, okay, there's obviously a problem because now we're into essential doctrine. And unfortunately, this is a really gray area within the church where we have to sit down and say, what's the difference between our preference and what we're raised with and what's comfortable to us, and what is, you know, the concrete, the meat, the stuff that, sorry, it's a poor analogy, the important things, you know, in Christianity that we just can't get rid of. And once you find those, you know, like you said, Tori, you got to be wise and be discerning and say, this is important, this is not, and then you move on from there.
So what are some of the things that both of you are thinking about that might be big things that are kind of current in Christianity to cause a fuss about, but in all actuality, really aren't that important? Is there anything that kind of comes to mind?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, I talked about this briefly. It's the thing with worship. It used to be a much bigger deal to me than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And you get some people that are just, oh my gosh, this is not a hill worth dying on. But people really feel that it's a big deal. Like, oh no, these new songs, you know, it's just, they repeat themselves and it's not the same as the hymns. And I used to be like that. I was like very, very set in my thinking on that because I had come from that background and that's what I was used to and that's what I was comfortable with. And I said, oh, you know, it's not the same. And then you have people on the flip side that say, no, we need a projector and a synth and a smoke machine. And, you know, we don't need to do this antiquated, I'm saying it wrong, I sound like an idiot now, this old unnecessary practice of singing hymns. You know, we have all this new music. It's not a big deal. Like, who cares, honestly? It's not worth arguing about, but it becomes this huge thing in the church. We have this big whole problem with it. And, you know, there are times when it's an issue. You know, how much are you spending on your worship? All right, now we need to have a conversation about that.
Mm-hmm.
Do people connect with it? Okay, you know, now it's time for a conversation. But petty stuff like that, to me, I think we put more emphasis on than it's really worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. That's something that our church, or my home church, has been kind of facing a lot with that specific thing, to the point where we kind of did the thing that a lot of churches are doing nowadays, where they kind of split the services. First service is more traditional. They have more of the hymns, not as much drums. That's a big one.
Drums are sinful.
Oh yeah, big time. Whereas the second service is more contemporary, more the lights dim, as I like to say. There's a spotlight, You know,
Oh, yeah.
some skinny jeans come out a little bit.
You know.
Not so much in my church. My grandpa's on the worship team, so. But although I would pay to see him to skinny jeans, but that's another topic for another day. So we're kind of coming towards the end, kind of coming towards our this one clock right here still says 6:30. Has not been set back because of daylight savings, but coming towards the end, 5:30. So to kind of wrap it up, we talked about a few things. Final thoughts, masculinity, femininity, women in leadership, just issues on the church, issues with society. What are your final thoughts, take away from kind of this broad topic today? I'll just keep talking. Check out my album that's dropping. So I'm just kidding.
I think what we learned today is that it's something that's important to continue to dialogue and talk about, and it's something that is easy to kind of either be like, oh, we're fine, we've got this, we don't need to talk about this, and in a way, like, that's good, but you also have to be careful, like, am I saying this just because it's easier to not talk about it and not ask those questions? And because I think that while the church is in a really great place, I think there's still a lot, as far as, like, you know, male stereotypes in Christianity and female stereotypes in Christianity. Like, there's still a lot to talk about and dialogue about. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think in all issues, and especially in this issue of gender roles in the church and leadership, you know, we have to keep our minds open, and we have to keep learning. Never stop learning. And the phrase open-mindedness scares a lot of people. Like, oh, you know, you're going to start believing crazy stuff. You can, but not if you're learning while you keep your mind open. You know what I mean? Keeping your mind open doesn't mean just listen to everything everybody says, but, you know, continue to educate yourself about these issues. Like Tori said, you know, keep dialoguing, keep having these conversations. Mm-hmm. And I think truly, when we can value each other as Christ does, and we put Him at the forefront of this, we're not having these discussions to prove who's right or to make the board happy. We're truly doing it so that we can be the church that Christ, you know, wants us to be. I think then we're going to be successful as long as we keep Him at the forefront.
Yeah. For me, I think in kind of today's show on Fire Talk and 93.7 FM, I don't think we necessarily unpacked anything too crazy deep or anything, but I think it was a good topic to have because, you know, if there's something you want to have change, you got to talk about it. You know, nothing's going to change if you just sit there and do nothing. You know, it's the whole, like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So, but hey, thank you guys for listening today. Let us know if any of your thoughts. Maybe you are out there and you're thinking that, wow, these people have no idea what they're talking about.
Heretics.
Yeah, we're all heretics. Women shouldn't be in leadership or whatever it may be, or drums really are the devil, if that's it. Make sure you go to YouTube, search Fire Talk Season 1. You can comment on our video or watch any of our past videos, see if we're just completely heretical in all of our videos, all of our live streams.
Wait till next week when we get Rob Bell on the show. If you're not offended yet, stay tuned.
And also make sure you check us out next week, Thursday at 4:30. We're going to be talking about a very, very heavy topic. We're going to be talking about mental health, specifically when it comes to college-age kids. So that's going to be a great show. We're going to have Anna Laughlin back. She won't be working that day, so that's good.
Yay.
Excellent.
But my name's Kyle.
I'm Tori.
And I'm Sean.
Thank you so much for listening. Sorry, I couldn't get to the song fast enough.
It's okay.
You want to try the sign-off again?
All right, I'm Kyle.
I'm Tori.
And I'm Sean.
This is Fire Talk on 93.7 FM.
Hey, look, it's a Kyle.
The Kyle Hawley sign-off. Goodness.
That's awesome.
For those that couldn't hear, when I clicked next song, it went to me doing the station ID. So they got to hear me twice.
It was great.
Wow, these are not comfortable.
Well, hey, thank you for listening, Tara. You got to watch on your phone, which, thank you. Tara's our biggest fan, I think.
Thanks for tuning in, Dad. I hope I didn't say anything ridiculous. I don't think I did.
Thanks, Mom.
Sean's dad, Tori's mom. Do you guys think that drums are the devil?
Let us know.
Let us know.
I hope he doesn't think that.
If you guys know how to comment on YouTube, let us know.
I believe in you, Dad. You can do it.
I'll call you later.
And Tara, I'll see you soon. So, and my grandma's gonna watch this later. So shout out to my grandma. I love you.
Hey.
Anyways, thank you guys so much.